Hey guys, welcome to Mosaic. This is a podcast where we have searching conversations. Hello to everyone in our Shard Nation. Y'all are absolutely incredible because you're here at 6 p.m. on Sunday, right down there, right in the live chat, right there. And right over here.
He has no idea what you're talking about.
I know. This is hilarious because this is actually going to be the intro. And we're just excited that you guys are here. We have a very special guest that Daniel's going to talk about because he's somewhat related to Daniel.
Somewhat.
Spoiler.
Dad was looking down. There's a live chat going on right down here, Dad.
Yeah.
Look, Dad, down there.
Right down there.
Do you see it? There's live chat going on.
Are we live yet?
We are absolutely live. This is 1,000%.
No, we're not live.
It is.
It's being recorded.
I mean, are we recording?
Yes. Yeah, 1,000%. This is, you're going through what Ruth goes through, which is that she's like, I don't want this to be the intro, but it's the intro.
Yeah.
Can
we please just re-record it? Like, no, we don't re-record.
So I can say something.
You can say 100%.
Okay, would y'all please pray for me?
Yes.
You're trapped.
Y'all out there, not these two.
Oh my gosh.
All right. So this is my dad, David Hennessee. I've known him for quite a while now. And yeah.
One would say all your life.
Somebody would say that. I would say that. Yeah, my dad, great guy, known him for a while, and that's why he's here on the show. No, I'm actually super excited because in earlier episodes when y'all are watching this, I'll make a reference every once in a while, or I'll say something. I'll be like, Dad, if you're listening, then I'm like, he never listens to podcasts. And so, but interesting enough, he started listening to podcasts. So every time I've said, yeah, Dad will probably never listen to this podcast, then I'm like, Daniel, you're an idiot. I'm listening to all of them now.
Every single one of them.
Yeah.
He is a true, would you say you're a Shard or a Moser?
He's a little Shard.
I like how you're answering for him.
Oh, sorry, Dad. What are you? I'll let you answer what you are.
I haven't figured that out yet.
That's okay. There's a searching season.
I am a supporter at this point.
A supporter. So he's yeah. That's pretty good.
That's good. He's a partner.
At some point, you need to make a choice if you're going to be a Moser or a Shard. There's two camps.
We got a form that you can send you. You can fill it out, and then it just asks for your social security numbers.
It does cost something. Huh?
Yep, Shard or Moser. September 15th, we're actually coming together. We're going to fight between the two clans.
Casey would say Twilight at this point. Because that's his go-to. That's his go-to battle.
We're waiting till the winter. We're gonna wait till there's snow on the ground. We're gonna recreate the whole scene. It's gonna be really good.
David is very confused, and it's rightfully so. This is how Mosaic happens. Don't worry, like Jane is fast forwarding through all this, so she won't see any of that. But she'll miss out on the jokes that happen because we call back a lot. In our podcast, and for everyone in Shard Nation who knows, we don't know what we're going to talk about yet. And that's why the beginning of this podcast is the way it is, because we just are constantly searching. We're trying to figure out organically, like what the Lord wants to talk about, because we don't want to talk about what we want to talk about. So we'll just throw out jokes, and then eventually we pick up on something. And most of the time with our guests, we ask just a little bit about them. If they want to share a little bit about their story, you can start wherever you want in it. It doesn't have to be like from the very beginning of your life, or it could be if that's what you want to share, but just give us a little bit of context of what life was for you.
Okay. As Daniel said, my name is David Hennessee. I am 71 years old. 71 years young, and I don't know what else to say other than they've kind of put me on the spot.
Your date of birth.
My date of birth.
I'm joking.
2352, my social is.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, we need the beep stuff.
I have been on a mission to lose weight, to get healthy. I'm now at 195 pounds, which was my high school weight when I was a senior in high school.
Wow.
Good job.
And my educational background, I've got a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in Christian counseling. And if I would have continued on and written my thesis, I would have my doctorate in Christian counseling through a non-accredited school called Therapon. I am a retired banker. I was a banker for 17 years. I was a mortgage loan originator for several years. Counseled at a maximum security prison for 12 years. I raised, along with my beautiful wife of 43 years, we raised 4
amazing
kids.
You were looking for
Daniel
an adjective
is
there.
not one of them. No.
That is so hurtful. Bring your mic up just a little bit so I can hear you really good. There you go.
Yeah, that's good.
Daniel's my second oldest. We have
Most
3
mature.
daughters, 2 dogs, 6 chickens, 6 grandchildren that I love with all my heart.
You said the chickens before the grandkids. That's messed up.
Yeah, let's edit that. 6
Just put it in the
grandchildren,
front.
6 chickens.
Some of them are wild grandkids, so they are in the same category.
That's right. I've got some wild grandkids, but the word says that children are a heritage of the Lord. Blessed is the man who has his quiver full.
Yep.
And we have a full quiver, and we have a full quiver of grandkids with some more on the way.
Yeah.
We won't say whom.
I'm pregnant. I wanted to tell you on the show.
We've got a scientific phenomenon. Daniel is pregnant.
I made my choice. Y'all didn't know I went woke.
Had no idea.
It happened this week.
Had no idea. My gosh.
Oh, gosh. I always wondered what it was like to be in this intro. Now I know.
Now you know.
Now you know. Is it everything you thought it would be, or is it worse?
It's worse.
We told Dad before the show. So when he's sitting in here with us and anybody who's on the show, we say like the cameras are other people. So we gave the cameras names because it's like my father-in-law and Casey, who is in our prayer group this week. Yeah. So as you're sharing stuff, it's just like y'all are in the room with us. But I want to hear real quick, as you're talking to the group and everybody out here, tell us, just kind of summarize, how did you come into the kingdom? How did God get a hold of your heart? Because you have a pretty incredible testimony. And I wouldn't be here unless some of that stuff happened. So give me a little backstory on it.
Backstory, raised in a really good family. My dad was one of those that, he was pretty hardcore, old school. Mom, very, very loving. And so I was raised in a Christian home, but it was kind of like, that's a good thing to do, but it's not spoken about, you don't speak about it a whole lot. We were Southern Baptist, and I remember I've already told my age, so I guess it won't date me, but I remember during the Cuban Missile Crisis, my mom had invited the Baptist pastor over to talk to me, and because it was getting, the world situation was getting pretty serious, and so the pastor, Brother Roy Hill, came and he said, "David, I want to talk to you about salvation, about Jesus." And I said, "Okay." And
how old were you then again?
I was 12.
So you're about Kaya's age.
About Kaya's age. And he said, I need, do you know where you would spend eternity if you died? And I said, I hope I would go to heaven. And he said, well, you can know for sure. And so I made a profession of faith when I was 12, walked the aisle in the old Baptist church. But I knew as I grew older, I knew there was more to it than what I was experiencing. Mm-hmm. And I was a decent athlete raised up in a small town in Central Texas, and so I played all the sports. I was captain of the football team, and blah blah blah, and so. Like I said, I basically learned how to be holy with the holies and terror with the terrors.
Yeah.
And so, and I was talented as a musician, I was a drummer, and we put together a rock band and actually became really good. Went into the recording studio and did some songs, did some recordings. And so I would, as long as I was with the godly crowd or the Christian crowd, I could fake it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as happened so many times, and with people, I got off on the wrong track. And through my college years, I really wasn't seeking the Lord. And then February of 1979, vividly remember, God began to work in me. And I knew, whether I was saved at the age of 12 when I walked the aisle and was baptized then, or whether I know for sure God dealt with me and touched me in February of 1979, and I won't go in all the details of that led me to the point where, I was to the point where I could have ended it all. But I knew that there was more. So I didn't want to be selfish and go that route, but I needed relief.
Yeah.
And so when I went to, when the Lord got a hold of me, I said, I'm going back to First Baptist Meridian. I'm going to give my testimony. My cousin was involved in that church. And of course, my parents were there as well. And I gave my testimony and began to immediately, they throw me into, became a teacher, Sunday school teacher, and doing the old Baptist gig.
Wow.
And my precious wife Becky was there's 8 years difference in us. So I was her Sunday school teacher.
No.
And I thought, that's pretty special young lady right there. And so we started sort of dating. And, 1 year or so later, I proposed to her. We were married in 1981. And as we were walking with the Lord, as I said, I knew, and we were faithful attenders of First Baptist Houston, and but I knew that there was more.
Yeah,
I just knew there was more than what I was seeing in the Baptist church. I thank God for my Baptist roots. All the old Baptist hymns I still can sing, and all the things I learned, the historical side of it, and all the things that I still remember. But as we after we got married, we would visit. This is after my brother and his wife moved to Palestine, where we are now, but we would come up on the weekends, and it was hard to get in that truck to go home on Sunday afternoon. And my background was, and we were home builders down in Houston. I worked my way through college working in construction, so I knew construction really well. And my brother and I talked about the possibility of maybe starting a business here in Palestine, which was, building, and he was a real estate broker. And so we kind of took the plunge, and in February of '84, moved to Palestine and started Hennessee Construction and real estate. And it went really well for probably a year and a half. This was the early '80s, and the oil business, the bottom just dropped out.
Yeah.
And the oil industry went down. And so I fell back on my counseling degree and found a job as a counselor at, that's my 12 years when I was in prison, but I got to go home at night, thank God. So, I started counseling.
What was it that made you want to pursue counseling and get a degree in psychology?
Well, that's funny too. As far as math goes, you talk about something that's ironic. Math was my worst subject. I have a hard time adding 2 plus 2. And of course, the kids would always rag on me, Dad, how can you be a banker and not know how to do math? That's why they make computers and calculators.
Siri.
In Siri.
Siri can oh, sorry.
So she's asking.
She said, huh?
She's our surprise guest.
Hi, Siri. When I was talking to the college counselor, because I had such a hard time in math, he said, he or she, I can't even remember who it was, but it was a college counselor. And they said, well, what would you like to, what kind of, career would you like to pursue? And I said, whatever I can take that I don't have to take math. And they said, well, we've got we're trying to get a lot of people into our psychology department. We got a really good psychology department. And sign me up. And but then I ended up having to take algebra 1 and 2 and trigonometry, and I passed all 3 of them in college. So wow. I was proud of myself. But when we moved up here and the business began to go down, I fell back on the counseling. And I did that for what I thought was just going to be a short while, and then go back into building. But I stayed there for 12 years and then moved from there, working as a sales consultant for a company here locally that basically did experiential learning, ropes courses, team building, and that kind of stuff. And during that time is when the owner of the company, he had told me about the Therapon Institute, and knowing that that's kind of where my heart was, because I loved helping people, talking to people, and not having to. I didn't want people to have to go through some of the hard knocks that I went through.
Yeah,
and so I checked into the school and got signed up, and went through all of that, got my certificate, and I did. After I did that, I started working as a mortgage loan originator, and at that time, I was. I was self-employed, working for the mortgage company, and I had a lot of free. I mean, my time was my own. I could schedule it how I wanted, and I really, at the time, Palestine Church had a free clinic, medical clinic. That's when Dr. Parkhurst was running that, and he and I teamed up, and I said I want to dedicate at least once a week coming and counseling, because he said if he would talk to a patient if they were in need of medication, or he said, I will let you have the meds, but you've got to talk to my counselor.
That's awesome.
And so that's kind of how that started.
And all during this time, because that was when you were out at the prison. Of course, I was born in 86. So he's doing all this, doing the counseling stuff out there, moving to the training, the ropes course and all that, doing Therapon, all that stuff while we were kids, and then started the counseling while we were young kids. So I remember you doing a little bit of that stuff while I was in junior high and high school through that route.
It's really interesting to me because and you could probably speak more to this than I actually can, but during that season, there was a huge stigma around counseling and like therapy and anything like that. Like people, they would not go because if you went, you're crazy or you're a loon. Like, and
you get labeled.
You get labeled. Yeah.
Or you failed almost.
Yeah.
Like, cause I remember that. I mean, what you're saying is right. Cause when we were kids, I remember it was almost like hush, hush. Like if you had to cry out for help, then it was like, you don't do that.
Yeah. So what was it like on the other end of that as a actual counselor in that season of life when most people were just not wanting to?
That didn't really faze me. What the others, what others thought about, the negativity coming from them didn't really faze me, because I knew that God had a purpose and had a calling on my life, and I was strong-willed enough to know that, if people didn't like it, that's fine. I'm still going to do what I know that I need to do and what God's called me to do.
Yeah.
And so I did it, and very rewarding. It can be a downer at times, because you you've got to, I had the empathy for people, I'd see myself in some of those situations.
Yeah.
Some of the things that they would share and things that had happened in their lives.
Yeah.
And you begin to see all the dynamics of how Satan really loves to kill, steal, and destroy. How he had destroyed so many lives, and so I was able to, work through that, and of course I was able to share some of my experiences, and I'd always tell people, when I was counseling, I said, having worked at a maximum security prison with some of the death row inmates, and the program one of the programs I was in at the prison was a mental health program. So you're dealing with all the full gamut.
Yeah.
Of people that were on psychotropic meds, and people that were suicidal, people that were extremely aggressive, everything. I mean, I saw guys that had committed some of the most horrendous crimes and some of the most horrific things that could possibly be done. And so even in that and seeing that, I still had, it broke my heart. I still had a heart to because I knew what God had done in me, and it changed me. And there was an incident several years ago where, and I won't mention names, but there was in East Texas, there was a black man that was drugged behind a pickup truck, drug him to death. And I know 2 of the 3 guys that did it, the white guys, they were in one of the classes that I was in, and I remember, and back up just a little, during the times that I was studying and learning, I began to really delve into spiritual warfare and learning about spiritual warfare and how to fight the enemy and fight the devil. And so as I talked to this one, kind of the leader of those 3 guys, it's probably one of the closest times I'd ever, I've never had Satan appear to me visually or physically. I've been in situations where I knew he was working, and I was in a deliverance ministry for a few years, and I actually saw manifestations of demonic activity. But that guy, as I spoke to him and would you could see the hard, calloused, evil. I mean, it was just, and he ended up being executed.
Wow.
And even in those things, that's what really brings a soberness to things, and it's like, what I never felt guilty about, you have a tendency to, or Satan would say, well, why didn't you help him? Why didn't you pray for him? Why didn't you lead him to Jesus, like you're so good at, or, that you
trying to shame you.
Yeah, trying to shame you. He never was, that didn't, it was still hurtful to see that, but I knew it's Jesus that he needed. It wasn't me. I mean, I would have been obedient had I been given that opportunity to witness to him. But anyway, that's.
I was going to say during that time, so your passion for counseling, teaching, all the stuff's going on while you're out there. You're doing, even with the ropes course training, things like that, you're still doing stuff. Even through real estate, you're still doing this stuff. And we can dive as deep as you want to or not. On the other side, it's almost like there's this parallel universe. Because on the other side, as you're doing those things, when you came back to Palestine, you and a group of individuals had it pressed on y'all's heart to follow after God. And like what you said a while ago, when you're in Houston, you're like, God, I know there's more to you. Yeah. Like you're just seeing one side of the bottle. And as you turn the bottle, there's so much more that you're missing. Yeah. And so, paraphrased or nutshelled, you came to Palestine, you had a vision in your heart, you and this group of individuals came together, and then out of it birthed Palestine Church, which is where we are today, that I'm pastoring and grew up in the church and have so many connections. So as you're doing all that to say, as you're doing counseling and all this other stuff, you're walking through life and ministry in Palestine Church. And the school and everything else that came out of it. That's awesome. And then at some point, was there a place where you backed out of counseling and go down that route, or go as deep as you want to, or not as deep as you want to?
I
just set up the ball. It was like a whole thing there.
Next week when I finish answering that question.
Well, what I'm directing at is because there was a season where you backed out of something that you said you were passionate of, right. And I know some of your backstory. Sam knows some of your backstory, and we're not going to dive into all of this stuff. But there was a season where I would say, and you can correct me, that the enemy was just like, we're going to hold him back from the things that God has purposed inside your heart. And then now, just as recent as the past month, God is bringing these things back out of your heart. And there was a season between A and B that all this stuff took place. And then now you're coming out of that season, which I think is beautiful, which we can talk about here in a little bit of what transpired even like a week ago and how God's moving through stuff like that and speaking to you and all that. But tell us a little bit about that season of what was going on inside your heart.
Well, as you said, we moved here in February of '84. Milk Green Ministries had basically came on the scene through James Robinson Evangelistic Association.
Yeah.
James had a ranch here in Palestine and would frequent Palestine. And we were initially meeting in homes as, a group of like believers that came out to knowing kind of some of the same things, knowing that there was more.
Yeah.
And so, you get labeled as this cult, they have joined this cult and they're
crazy charismatic,
charismatic. They actually speak in tongues and do all of those kind of gyrations and stuff.
Don't even talk about that.
Shanda. Anyway. So, but there was a group of like-minded individuals that I teamed up with, or we teamed up with. My brother and Ronnie and Donnie Harris and numerous people that, and we were meeting in homes, as I said. Arvil and Ella Harris, God rest their souls, precious, precious people that were kind of the mom and pop of the group. But we would meet and we were James would come in and we were bouncing around from I can't even think of the school, the building right across from your office, the Landmark.
Yeah, the Landmark.
Well, we met there. We met in the Texas Theater, and I actually did praise and worship. Randy Gray and I and a young man that moved off to he lives in Athens, Randy Skiles. We would do praise and worship at the Texas Theater and in the homes. We were one big family, and we met a lot. We'd meet at the Harris's and go swimming. And in fact, I have a picture in my Bible of me baptizing you at the Harris farm. I baptized all four of the children. But we would meet and James kept saying, I really feel God doing something, moving, and it's time, the proverbial, do something or get off the pot type of thing. And y'all need to move forward with it. We were meeting out at James's ranch. One night, and Becky and I were of all the original Palestine church people that I know, we're the only two left that were in that meeting that night. And kind of did a show of hands. Who's in?
Yeah.
I'm there.
Wow.
And he said, it's time. So we started Palestine Church.
And God was moving incredible. We hear about a lot. When did you first come to Palestine?
I was a little bit younger than Will's age because I was my first year in Palestine Christian school was my 5th grade year.
Yeah.
And then you were one of my Bible teachers. And I think
you were one of my worst students.
That's what I was going to say. I was thinking I was the reason you quit. And so, but I remember coming into that school, and I remember just the staff and like the teachers and everything like that. In fact, your wife was my 5th grade teacher.
Yeah.
And she taught me multiple classes. She was like our main teacher and my favorite teacher actually at the time. And so I remember going to your house and like baking cookies and stuff like that. And I remember she taught us sign language. Like there was a whole bunch of things that I learned from the, oh yeah, dude, we did a song, a Newsboy song. And so
moving the way. Yeah. I remember that song. I remember y'all doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's really interesting to me though, that so the start of the core vision of Palestine Church is this one, the knowledge or the awareness of there's more.
Yeah. Come on.
And then the desire to pursue that more.
Yes.
And it's really interesting to me because I didn't know that growing up, but I absolutely felt it.
Yeah.
Throughout every single conference, every single church service. Like the Palestine Church shaped so much of my experiences with God.
Yeah.
And like what we've known because of my dad that's been on, like we traveled a lot and like we were a part of many different churches, but Palestine Church always felt like this home for me.
Yeah.
And it was what I would call an anchor point in my faith, because that's where God showed up the most prominently in my life, to the point where and I think we were even talking about this just the other day, like I could turn super rebellious and turn away from God.
Yeah.
But at this point in my life, there's no way I could ever deny his existence.
Yeah, that's good.
I've had so much experience. Like my heart could go cold and I just turn, but I know I could never deny that he exists.
So much evidence there.
And I owe a lot of that to our experiences in Palestine Church, and just like there was a tangible presence of God that would show up in these services. And so it's really interesting, and I think very important for anyone who's really in Palestine Church to be aware of the core thing that started this, which is this: there's more, and we want to pursue that.
Yeah. It's funny that Mitch Ivy came probably a month ago, 2 months ago, and he was talking about, he said, you'll hear in a lot of these circles, like we need to dig new wells and God's doing a new thing and all this other stuff. And he actually prophesied in the house, and he said, actually, God is cleaning out these old wells. And one of the old wells is a hunger for the Holy Spirit of there's more, that the vastness of God that I'm never going to see this out of eternity. And in eternity, you spend the rest of eternity finding out more and more facets of God's face. And I think that's amazing that you and this core group of people came in with the hunger. And it's not about Palestine Church, and it's not even about the building, because if the building burned down tomorrow, we would just meet in the parking lot. And that same well would be there of, okay, are you hungry for God? Do you want a relationship? It's, I said it last week, the seeking of his face. Do you want to seek his hand, or do you want to go after the person of God and who he is? And you, that same thing is still there.
And you, in your question a while ago that started us along that vein.
Yeah.
There was, I knew that I had to have God regardless. It's kind of like when Peter said, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Where would I go? Yeah. And I think that was the heart of core group. And as we grew together, and Palestine Christian School was birthed out of the like-mindedness of the families, the wives, mainly, especially as they were, they were homeschooling. Well, I know how to teach this. Well, I know how to teach that. And they become...
Becky knows sign language, apparently.
Becky knows sign language and knows how to make cookies.
Yeah. And, we'll teach them home ec. You know how to make cookies.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, that's the direction it began to flow.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot, when you're asking why did I pull back? There was a lot of, I poured my life, or we poured our lives into Palestine Church physically. There were times I'd work all day at my job and go up to Palestine Church and build and work construction, knocking out walls, and doing all of that for years. For years we did that, and to build something that we were so excited about, and only to see that robbed. And I won't go into that. That's just hurts, past hurts that need to be forgiven, and which part of that healing started taking place last week.
Yeah,
as recently as last week. But we were like-minded in that, and it was really neat how God put that together, and how Satan fought to destroy it, because there was a lot of good things that came out of that school, as well as the church, and it got to the point where there became so much resistance. People, a lot of people started leaving, a lot of hurt, a lot of things that were said and done, and it got to that point with Becky and I that we finally just we couldn't walk in that anymore, and we pulled out of Palestine Church, and we started the next week at Evangelistic Temple, and because of I found favor in God's eyes, or had favor, and a lot of the people knew me there. The pastor knew me and put me the next week into the counseling ministry there. So we were there for a few years, and then.
And during that time, let's pause on that one. So as this was happening, because, and this is a lot of thing that God, we'll say that with context, like God is mending a lot of things right now, that it's just been years of like hurts on both sides and things like that. And God is actually moving mightily right now within the past couple of weeks. I say weeks, God's been doing this for, we said it the other day, like 18 years. He's been, or 20 years, God's been changing stuff and lining things up where stuff is getting healed and mended and things like that. But I was going to say that even when you had pulled back on that side, you were still going after your passion, and you're like, okay, my passion is counseling. I want to help people. I want to do this. And then you got into ET. And I remember you doing counseling over there. And then how long were you doing that? And then you kind of backed off from it a little bit.
I don't remember exactly, 5-6 years maybe. I was part-time on the praise team, going back to my old rock and roll years of playing drums, and but I played at Palestine Church on the praise team for, I don't know, more years than I can remember. But probably the thing, as you know, you two, as you well know, with Becky having the back surgery, 10, 11 years ago, and becoming partially paralyzed. I don't think I have ever been angry at God and shaking my fist at him, because of her situation. Maybe silently, in my heart.
Yeah.
And so, Satan's real good about being your buddy and saying, "Hey, bud, you're getting on up there. You've worked hard,
Yeah.
It's time to a little R&R." And still having that desire, and knowing I still, I don't know, it's a good habit, but I mean, every morning I get up and I'm sitting in my recliner reading the word and praying, and I still, I still desire to do what I'm supposed to be doing, and I still hear, maybe not as clearly probably as I used to on some things because of the, I think I don't want to say that it gets well. You kind of atrophied a little because it's not being used as it really needs to be used. And so, but I see where Satan had a hand in, although I don't want to give him credit for anything, you run into those things, and it just, you become tired and weary.
Well, it's an interesting thing. And I'll say like we can hold the tension because God can hold the tension. There's definitely times that I've been angry at God, and not in the right for it. Like I know that.
Right.
But it's an interesting thing to me that there's this dynamic that the enemy will use, and you can see it also amongst people, where it's almost when something happens that you don't understand and you can kind of be a little hurt by it.
Yeah.
The enemy's real quick to be like, "Hey, that's not fair. Like you shouldn't be treated that way."
Yeah.
And there's this in a human relationship, if we're going through something that's not ideal or a rough season, and it's can be directed towards something, I could be like, "Dude, this sucks. They really aren't doing their job right. And you're really hurting because of that." Now there starts to be a bond and a almost camaraderie that you feel in the negativity.
Yep.
And the enemy can use this tactic so well to be like, "Hey, you're not deserving of this. Like, what about all the things that you've done?" And you feel like wow, you're right.
Like you're validated.
Like now you're talking, you're entertaining it.
Yeah.
And he played that on me so many times because, well, I won't say that. But he used that against me numerous times to say, "Dude, you worked your butt off.
Yep.
And you poured your life out into this, and you gave your time, blood, sweat, tears, money that you really had to work hard for."
Yeah.
And it wasn't, we gave sacrificially.
Mm-hmm. You deserve this kind of thing.
Yeah. And so, I hate the devil for the way he does that. And I can easily recognize it. and I see now, and what it all led to, last week.
Real quick before you jump into next week, because like as you're talking now, you're saying that there's two things that came up, and then I want to flow into next week because Satan will, and we're not getting him glory on the show. We never do this on Mosaic.
Well, I want to say that the reason why I do want to talk about in maybe more details than you guys are wanting to go as far as like that dynamic of it is to bring awareness. Yeah. Because even just I'm not going to take it from you.
No, you're fine. Go for it.
The core thing of Palestine Church being that there is more, I cannot ignore that. That's exactly what you said. Bro. Took you from a place where you were ready to give it all away, and the awareness of there's more. Yeah, and like so good. That's what the enemy's wanting to hide. That's what he's wanting to take away. That's what he's wanting to prevent you from ever getting to in any of these situations. And so to understand these tactics, to understand how he's working, that's why I want to talk about this stuff.
Absolutely. You literally took it out. I mean, that's perfect. So what Satan will do is he wants to give counterfeits in whatever it is. If you want, if you want joy, he'll give you counterfeit joy, whatever it is with things or idols or things like that. If you want validation, he'll give you false validation. You need position, power. You need to have your back rubbed and say, hey, you're doing a great job and all this other stuff. They should have given you this or done this. He always comes in those. And what's dangerous, if you're listening to this, is that Satan wants to be the accuser of the brethren. That's what he is. He comes in and brings accusations. And then he also, like our good shepherd, likes to shepherd himself and bring in the same people from the flock. Because as he starts to segregate you and get you by yourself, then he's like, okay, let's find other people that share the same hurt that you have. And then we feel validated inside of our argument or inside of our hurt of, well, they did this. Well, yeah, they did do that, didn't they? Yeah. And then he can just step back and the accusations now come from the circle within. Exactly. And then he's like, my work is done, because now it's become a seed that's planted inside your heart.
And he orchestrated that at one time where numerous, like the big yellow legal pad 2 pages, signatures of people that were hurt and offended and got us to the, together in a meeting. And so, be sober, be vigilant, for your adversary stalks about like a roaring lion. And he would speak those lies. And, it's real easy to, when you're down, it's real easy to get in agreement with, it's a false hope, but there's a hope there. I've got to have some kind of something to hang on to. And my right is not about me, like we, in that podcast. And so we look for those things that we can hang on to, albeit they're not the things you need to grab.
Are there 2 ways to, because I'm still stuck on something else you said. I know we're going to go in the area of next week, but I feel like there's still more juice on this. Like, I still have that mental image of what you just did a while ago where you shook your fist at God. Like you said, I never got to this point, but like, I feel there's 2 ways you can go at that.
There can be a silent.
There could be a silent inside your heart, but then I want to ask you, because you can tell me, how big is God in that moment? Is he big enough when I'm thinking of Micaiah, my own child, her will rose up in her and she got so angry with me. And then even the other night, because she is a almost 13-year-old young woman, and y'all pray for me all in our Shard Nation. But she rose up again with that fist to her daddy, just like we do toward our God. But is God big enough to take that fist and just gently lay it down and say, hey, let's talk a little bit about this?
God's big enough to grab that fist. He's also big enough to slap you upside the head.
Which one did he do with you? You don't have to answer that.
He has slapped me a couple of times, lovingly.
Yeah. Lovingly slapped you.
Lovingly slapped me a couple of times because Sometimes that's required when you get into a pity party. That's the only thing that will rattle the cage to make you say, come to your senses. But there were the surgery situation, the health situation, and as the podcast said, it's not about me, but we have a tendency to say, it's all about me, and my needs aren't getting met, and I don't like this, and I want that, and you did this, and you did that, and
God, are you really healer? God, are you really here for me? Are you really my Jehovah Jireh?
Because I saw him do, and just more than once, but I saw one specific thing that he healed, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt in my military mind, although I'm not a militant, I'm militant, but
no doubt.
But he definitely brought a healing.
Yeah.
Physical healing. And I saw it. And but it's not about David. And David wanted if you'll do this, then let's make a deal here. And should we accept adversity and as well as the good things? I mean, God, I want all good things. I don't want adversity. But when I put the adversity there, when I push against you, resistance builds strength. And if you know anything about weightlifting or working out, you have to have the valley times.
Yeah.
In order to ascend to the mountaintops.
Yep.
And that's so tough because I know we have mixed people with The Chosen and something, and which is awesome. David watches The Chosen too.
Love it.
He loves it.
Love it.
But
we love it.
Hashtag.
We have some people who are
always going on record
in the comments.
I'm going on record as I love The Chosen.
Yes.
But
because it's about him.
Yes.
That's right.
It's about
Thank
Jesus.
you. I was tracking with that because it was just a quick little rabbit trail I'm going to let you continue on, but thinking about Thomas this season.
Yep.
And what you just said.
Yep.
God, I'm dealing with the stuff with my wife and I have this and we had to go through surgery and got all this adversity that we're walking through. But at the same time, I saw you heal somebody with my own eyes. No doubt in my mind that you did that. God, why?
Yep.
Am I walking through this right now with this tumor and all this other stuff?
Yeah.
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 You can't explain it. That's one of those moments where you just with a quiet heart of trust come in and say, God, I trust you because I know that you're good.
I don't yet know as I ought to know, Paul said.
Whoa.
And so
yeah.
I don't know what rabbit trail we got off on and where I was supposed to go with that.
We can chase rabbit tails. That's fine.
Rabbit trails.
Rabbit tails and trails.
And tails.
Tails and trails.
And bells.
And bells.
You ever seen a rabbit with a bell around its neck?
It's usually going down a trail and it's got a tail.
That's right. Wait, we're not at the 20 minutes. We can't BS.
Sorry.
Okay.
My bad. It was out of place.
No rabbit trail bells.
So what was I supposed to get back to?
No, this was all.
I'm sorry. I didn't.
No, I was pausing.
No. I'll let you go.
I was leading up to last week because we gave a little bit of this on the podcast last week, but we didn't say anything that was going on except that everything over the past 20 something years led up to everything, including Matt, who was supposed to be a part of our prayer group, slept through his alarm because something happened to him the night before. Like all these things happened and Holy Spirit spoke to you and had a specific word to you through Bill, who was, and then even some things that God's reconciling things in y'all's heart together. Like all this stuff happened last week. And then your heart, boom, was.
Yes. I've known, golly, how long have we known y'all?
Too long.
Too long.
Not long enough.
Bill and I kind of were at the point where I thought, we'll just agree to disagree. And you tolerate me, I tolerate you, bless you. blah, blah,
Is
blah.
that a cuss word? Is that a Christian cuss word? Bless you.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Bless you.
It's all about the tone that you use.
So
Bless you.
So, and I really, there were some things said years ago, and I took offense at it.
Yeah.
And, but, we kind of got over it and just kind of, again, we can just agree to disagree. You're not one of my favorite people, but you're not one of my worst people either.
Yeah.
And so, but he was sharing out of Colossians 3 about the bond of perfection, and that bond. When you look at that word, and I, of course, I immediately go home. I love to research words. I love to teach, and I'll look up because Bill had shared that word means like ligament, and that ligament's attached to the bone, and the bone. The ligaments surround the joint and protect the joint from stretching too far. When you stretch that joint too far, bad things happen. You tear an MCL or an ACL, or you get a rotator cuff and I've got 2 of them that have been messed up. And so, but as I began to read and study that love is the bond of perfection.
Yeah.
And if you don't have love, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there listening to that, and I point blank looked right at him and said, "I'm sorry, forgive me." And he said, "Forgive me. I see now, because y'all were there. Y'all saw what happened."
Oh, yeah.
And
you should have seen it, because as you were doing this, Sam and I and Casey's there, we're all like doing this over here. And I'm like, I look at Casey, I go, what's going on? Like, what's happening right now?
Oh, and that, because we were sharing.
Yeah.
Do I need to mention the other guy?
No,
You don't have to if you don't want to.
You can do whatever you
Well,
want.
I mean,
You can do whatever you
You
want.
just say offenses with other people.
I had offenses with other people, and one person in particular. And it was a very, very bitter, to the point I don't know if it was hate, but I was extremely upset and did not like that person.
Yeah.
And so after I asked Bill, I said, I need you to forgive me. And then I said, and so as Daniel and I are walking out the door, because I know if you're going to walk in this walk, you have to have love. You can't.
That's right.
You can't skate around it.
Yeah.
And so, I can love this one and I can love that, but no, I'm not going to love that one.
Yeah.
No.
That's a good word.
I told Daniel, I said, I know I need to call such and such. And I called such and such, and we met. I won't share that part either. We met at this place that I do not support. I do not like.
Oh my gosh.
And I just saw, how ironic that God would say, okay, you're going to go and you're going to repent and ask forgiveness in this place that even I can work. I can even work in that place, David.
Yeah.
For our listeners, it wasn't like a brothel. It was like terrible. It was a coffee shop that he doesn't like.
It was a very woke coffee shop that I am against.
Wait a minute, you're not woke?
I woke up this morning, praise God. And,
That's such a dad joke. I've never heard more of
That's
dad.
the closest I get to wokeness is when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Anyway, you
But,
go to this coffee shop.
So we go to this coffee shop, and I said, dude, I've held all these things against you.
Golly, come
And
on.
I need your forgiveness. And he said, I forgive you. You don't have to.
Wow.
And, and I
So
said,
good.
and he says, I forgive you. You forgive me. We all forgive each other. We love each other, because love is the bond of perfection. And we've got to perfect that relationship.
Yeah.
Because that relationship was out of joint. It
Ooh.
was torn.
It was a
That
rotator cuff.
That ligament was torn, and that rotator cuff was not working correctly. And so
Real quick on that, Bill Johnson gave this perfect example. He said, when your arm pops out of socket, it's not that your arm discontinues being part of the body. It's not cut off from the body.
That's good.
But it becomes useless.
Yep.
It's not fulfilling. I'm not crying. I can't talk. It becomes a place where you can't use it for its intended purpose.
Yeah.
Your rotator cuff, when it went out in your shoulder, talking about passions that you love, which is hunting, just the simple act of drawing back a bow, you weren't able to do. Right now, you're able to do, I mean, probably 15 pounds. You're not very heavy. Dad's kind of weak. But now Dad is able to fulfill his destiny that God called him, because we're going prophetic here. Yeah. You're able to do what your arm is intended to do. You're able to do what you have a passion about, which is hunting, all because now that arm has the bond of love that's back on it.
Yep. Yeah. That's good. So I don't know where, I think
that the Lord really wants us to hit on this dynamic of needing each other and doing life together. This is why I cannot get behind cancel culture.
Yeah.
I can't do it. One, it's relational murder.
Ooh, I haven't heard that one.
You are ending something before its natural time to end.
Yeah.
Relationships, people come into your life for a season.
Yeah.
Picking up an offense and then being like, that's it. You're dead to me. You have relationally murdered them. And I don't know your story. I don't know the end of it. But if I've cut myself out from it, I'm no longer going to be impacted by it.
That's good.
And we impact each other and grow together exclusively. Oh my God, almost does it exclusively.
Yeah.
To bring growth, he does it with someone else. Like, it doesn't, I can't recall a lot of times in the Bible where it wasn't used with someone else involved.
Yeah.
With David and the I forget his name, the prophet that came and Nathan. Was like, you are the Nathan. Like God uses us.
Yeah.
In this sense to grow each other.
Yeah.
And like, I love Daniel dearly. And I can't think of a single thing that could ever happen to push me to the place, but I know that it can the possibilities there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And so like, I think, and I'm not trying to just highlight your story. I'm just saying, I think that it's very relatable to a lot of listeners. I think that there's a lot of people out here who can say like, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I know exactly what you're feeling. And this is the person that's my so-and-so. Yeah. Like, this is like it doesn't take much for you to recall the person you hate the most.
Yeah.
In fact, they live in your head rent free.
Yeah.
And so it's just this idea of getting to the place where you're saying, man, I desire to forgive you and I want forgiveness from you.
That's good.
That is a place that no one in 2024 is actually really getting to often.
Right.
And that's what I feel like God's wanting to highlight in this.
And I think there are numerous situations like that. This is what I did. This is what I deserve to have. And it is about me, and I want recognition. Yep. And God said, it's not about you. It's about the kingdom.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite sayings when all that was going on, I would say, before that person, fill in the blank that we're talking about, before him, I am. That was almost blasphemous because God says, I am.
Yep.
But I would say before I am, I was here first, and I, worked myself fingers to the bone, blood, sweat, and tears, nearly killed myself, working and striving and building all this up for what? Only to have to leave because I'm so sick of what it's turned into.
Yeah.
And because I should have been directing that towards Satan and taking control of that, because the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he was destroying that.
As a result of that, though, because as you're saying that, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And then what that means is he steals days of your life. He steals years of your life. He steals from your inheritance. He kills dreams that you have, passions that you have. And then as a result of that, he destroys the legacy, what your kids and grandkids are going to have as a result of you having things inside the kingdom. And I think it's interesting that as you're naming these hurts and saying that you're rightfully so, and I deserve the preeminence, and this is essentially what you're saying, God let that step back from what your passion really was, which was helping people, counseling, things like that. And so those things took the back burner in your hurt, took the front thing, almost as if I'm going to give the same passion and everything that I have for helping people and counseling into this bitterness now to sustain that. And what's amazing is that Satan comes to steal, kill, and destroy, what he was doing in just, the years over that you've had this hurt. But then God is also, which is the whole point of this show, God is also the one who brings beauty from ashes. Yep. And he's the one who can restore what Satan stole. He'll have him return to you fivefold and come back in and say, okay, yeah, well, he took this, this, and this. Let me show you how good of a God I am. He shows up and shows out. And then he's like, the next 15 years, 20 years that you're going to be doing ministry before you become a pilot and then go overseas and whatever Dad's going to do next. Yeah, because he's going to become a pilot. God is going to use you in mighty ways that you never even thought was possible.
That's so good. It's interesting I start thinking about bitterness because every situation has the potential to become bitterness. Mm-hmm. And if I'm such a logic, like a literal person. And so like, if I'm literally thinking of like juice becoming bitter, it is losing sweetness. And when we stop being sweet and we stop being kind and extending the kindness out, we become bitter. And it's it's almost a withholding. So that I feel, because I'm trying to go through like the process of allowing bitterness in. Yeah. And I think it starts with the withholding kindness, withholding grace. Yeah. I am no longer giving you or extending grace to the situation. Yeah. And I start to withhold, and then the sweetness starts to go away. And then it becomes, you almost have to, meditate on it, right? Yeah. Like for it to truly become the bitterness that's in you. And that's the saddest thing, because it's that to me parallels, a lot of bitterness is unforgiveness, but I've heard many times unforgiveness is a poison that you drink. Yep. It's not a poison that affects them. Right. So you're the only one. And it's like you've painted your walls with their name. You've painted your walls with every action against you. And you look at it on a constant basis. You look at it on a day-to-day basis. And it's that my heart breaks for them. Yeah. For the person that's sitting there in those walls that have, like, there's obviously been an injustice. Like, I don't want to say it's not valid, your injustice or your hurt. Like, there's something, I think in general, when we go through life, we're going to hurt each other. Like there's things that I've said that have probably hurt Daniel. There's things that he said or will say that will hurt me. And it's like, I'm trying to hone in on the difference between what prevents or what causes the relationship to end.
It has to be rooted in connection and love, just like the bond of perfection. While you were saying this, I pulled up Colossians 3. Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long suffering. In other words, you could put a dash there, long suffering, or suffer for a really long time.
Yeah.
Bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against one another, even as Christ forgave you, so you must also do. Yeah. That's the hardest place for me. That's what we talked about last week is I was like, and I got so teary-eyed at that point because I was like, how could Jesus, the King of the universe, go to the cross quiet?
Yep.
He was suffering long. So he was going and doing all these things with meekness, which is power under containment. He was the all-powerful ruler with one word. We would have disintegrated like Thanos style, like out. And he was quiet the whole time. And then even like, was it Pilate who said, like, what is truth? And truth is standing right there before him. Yep. Like he went quietly. And now Colossians 3 is saying, all that I just talked about, do that. Yep. Quietly stand before your accuser and all this and just say, I forgive you and I love you. Making room for your faults. Yeah. Because I am going to offend you and you're going to offend me. And Dad, he always offends me, but it's going to happen. That's what he's saying here in this verse. But that's what's so beautiful about it is that he's saying it's going to happen. So go ahead and get prepared for it and already get your forgiveness ready like a bandage. Yeah. And as soon as the hurt comes, go up, already took care of it. Yeah. That's how you can walk in unity together and walk in love is already be prepared to forgive somebody before they even hurt you.
Yeah, dude.
And then at that point, because people say become unoffendable, even on our team, we say, yeah, just be unoffendable. I see what you're saying there, but I'm like, you're going to get offended. You can't become unoffendable, but you can get to a point where you say, I'm not going to retain. I'm
not going to pick up that offense.
I'm not going to pick up that offense.
Yep.
That's one thing you can do is somebody will offend you and then just say, I choose not to pick that up, because then I think about that quiet Christ walking and carrying his cross when he had every right to destroy the earth.
I think that's what it is, dude. I think that Jesus has walked through every situation we'll ever go through.
Yeah. Tempted in every way.
In every way.
Yeah.
So that he can relate and say, I've been there. And I think that that's why, even going back to like the feeling angry, I think that's why he can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the garden before the crucifixion, sweating blood.
Yeah.
Out of intensity of his prayers to God, saying, take this away from me. And if there's no other way, then I'll do it.
Yeah.
But if there's any other way, I don't think that I think there's fear there. I think there's anger there. I think that I think he walked through this before us so that he can look at any situation wherever in, say, I get it. I understand it. And then he holds the tension. He holds the validity of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's like, we have to be able to be honest with God.
Yeah.
We have to. The idea of this Christian life being perfect and like whatever your idea of like a Christian life is,
Hallmark Christianity,
that shuts your mouth from actually communicating to God how you feel, is hurting us more than we know, than we're willing to admit.
Yeah. Because
the sitting in silence, it's hurting you.
Yeah.
I'm a 9 on the Enneagram. I don't know if you know anything about the Enneagram.
He teaches Enneagram.
Do you really? I know for a fact you don't. And 9s, you got something to say? You can say it.
Well, I mean, he has preached that yes, I studied it in college.
Yeah.
And when I was working as a sales consultant, leadership consultant, our focus, the instrument that we used was the DISC, personal behavioral
DISC assessment.
DISC assessment.
Yeah.
And that's the one I know like the
back of your hand.
Better than the back of my hand.
Yeah.
And I counsel out of that one. And so anyway.
Yeah. And so it's just a tool that a lot of people, I won't go down the rabbit trail of that. Anyways, 9s have a tendency of being passive aggressive. And we're called the peacekeepers, but honestly, that's kind of a mislabel because we're not really keeping the peace. Mm-hmm. It's an artificial peace because as a default, if you're okay and I'm hurt, we're going to be okay because I won't bring it up.
Yeah.
And it's the confrontation to me was such a impossibility. Not even like I wouldn't even consider it.
I'm thinking about when we went to get food. Tell that story. I laugh every time.
The Subway one?
Yeah.
We were going to get we were going to go get food, and me and Daniel have this unspoken rule where it's like, whatever you actually want, we're going to go get. Like, we're not just going to go to one place.
Yeah, we need to bring this up on the podcast. Yeah. Dad, we go to 5 places if we want to eat somewhere.
I hate that.
We'll go 15 places.
You guys.
Becky would always
it's because
do
of
that
your
with
generation.
The kids. She said, we'll go to 5 different places.
That's right.
Yep.
No,
anyway.
We're going to one place.
Nope.
You're going to eat. If you don't eat, you go hungry. Bow, bow, bow.
No.
That is literally the foundation of why we do this, because our parents used to say, we're only going to go to one place and one place only. And so literally, like, it was in high school, me and Daniel became friends, and we would do these things called B&Es, not breaking and entering, but best night evers. And that was the thing, is like, if you want fries from McDonald's, but a burger from Whataburger and like a drink from Sonic, we're going to all these places. And it literally made for the best night ever. Yeah. So anyways, that's context to why this comes up. And we were going to the grocery store. You had gotten food.
Yeah, I had to go like get something from CVS or something like that.
And then you were going through a place, and I wanted Subway, and so like literally like we were in CVS, and I was like, like after this we'll go to Subway, and I had said that, but we had been in CVS for a while, and so we're walking out of CVS, and I just like in a jingle saying like, going to Subway or like, something like that.
We're going to Subway now or something like that. Song. And I was like, I called him out, and I was like, Sam, do you not want to have confrontation and tell me we need to go to Subway?
Like, did you think I was going to forget that we were going? And it was my way of like softly reminding. And that's 100% true.
Subway.
Like, I wasn't going to say like, hey, dude, in case you forgot, like, I want Subway. Right. Because that's another thing that 9s have a hard time doing, is voicing their actual desires.
Yep.
And my ex-wife used to get so mad at me because if we went to like McDonald's and I wanted a large Dr. Pepper and they gave me like something that was wrong, I wouldn't tell them, and I would just go to another McDonald's and order what I wanted. And she was like, we are not going to drive through another freaking drive through. You're going to tell them that you did not want Coke. You wanted Dr. Pepper,
got
and
the
this
order
is wrong. And she helped me grow in that, honestly. And so now I'll tell you, like, I actually wanted this to be a large or an iced coffee or whatever. And so anyways, all that to say that when I'm silent in those moments and I don't confront, that's where the passive aggression grows out of.
Yeah.
And now I'm starting to act because I'm offended by you, and you're unaware that I'm offended. And so it's not justice. It's not it's not a fair relationship anymore. And so like, this is, oh my gosh, this ties into what we do with God.
Yeah.
If we can't sit there and say, I'm mad at you. Like, I think that this situation is unjust. I think it's unfair. And I think you're not showing up in this way. If we can't do that, we become passive aggressive towards God, and it's not a genuine relationship anymore. It's a false relationship.
He already knows it, and he just wants you to come become honest with him. That was a good thing that Kaya did to express that frustration to you. I had a tendency, I was overbearing at times, and I didn't. You shut up and don't say another word.
Okay.
And I don't know that was, it wasn't always the right way. I was too hard, for whatever reason, and maybe I was tired. I didn't want to deal with it. It's my way or the highway. This is the way we're going to do it. And so it's okay for them to disagree. Let them voice that. And then that way you're able to correct during that course of conversation with him. You're able to say, okay, well, I understand this, but look at it this way. This is what Dad thinks, blah, blah, blah. So those are teachable moments that can be very productive, although I didn't do them correctly most of the time because I was too hard-headed.
Yeah.
I'd say you did most of the time. I turned out okay. Yeah. Well, he's saying it because of the camera.
You did?
He really didn't. No, you did. No, that's one of the hardest things in parenting. It's just a whole nother world. Sam, get ready. Because
it's a whole new world.
Oh my gosh. Did you know Sam sings on the podcast?
I've heard that stated numerous times, but I've never heard it.
He's about to.
No one has seen me actually sing on this podcast.
You sing in the shower.
I sing in the shower.
You sing in the shower.
I sing in the shower.
I don't want to even know how you know that. But anyway.
Because he listens to the podcast. That's how I know that he knows that. Yep. He's
Rabbit Trail
He's
Bell.
in Shard Nation. That's
I called Sam a while ago being like, hey, I'm about to come to the house. And then I hear water splashing. And I wasn't going to ask because I said it's really awkward when a guy asked another guy, are you taking a shower? So
100% I answered the phone while I was in the shower.
Yeah.
Because my brother was calling me and I had to answer the phone. He's fortunate he didn't FaceTime me.
I am so glad I didn't FaceTime you.
Because I would have answered.
Sam would have answered. And that would have been a whole fiery circumstance.
Oh man, it was so funny. Yep. I have no shame.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, the way that God deals with us is so like that relationship between, because it's a type and shadow and a picture of what you see in the kingdom with parents and the way that he comes. And I don't know where we got it wrong along the way in history of thinking that God doesn't care, or he's just going to be really mad at me, or he doesn't want a relationship. He just wants obedience, and that's it. And he doesn't care about anything else. He doesn't want me to ask why and all these things. And it's actually the opposite. God is desiring not for you to be slaves. He says, I call you friends. Yeah. And he doesn't share things with a slave in the context of the scripture Jesus was talking about. He doesn't share his plans with servants or slaves or whatever you name it. But with his friends, he does. Yeah. He says, I actually want to take Palestine, and I want to do this for the orphan and for the widow and for the unborn. I want to do these and these things. But if I never ask God those questions, or if I never cared to, but I just want to have that Israel relationship with God rather than the Moses relationship with God. Moses went up and said, I'm going to see you come heck or high water. He said it like that. But the children of Israel said, Moses, you go hear him for us, because we don't want that relationship because we're scared. And somewhere along the way, people get it so messed up of God is just here to spank you, yell at you, and send you to your room, and you better straighten up, rather than God wants you to come sit in his lap. And he actually because it says in scripture, he wants to dance over you. He wants to sing over you. Yeah. Like, what kind of dad's never sang over me? I mean,
he just did.
That was really now I can say dad sang over me on the podcast.
Now he has. He literally, there's proof now.
Yeah.
No, dude, I think that it stems out of this idea that we have to be perfect.
Ooh.
Because a perfect child does not confront his parent.
Yeah.
Does not have an issue with his parent. We think that. A perfect parent, there's no reason for conflict or confrontation. But when we don't understand confrontation, I don't think. Like, we don't understand what it is. Healthy confrontation. Yeah. Because genuinely what we're saying, the conversation is this: God, I was hurt by this situation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop there, because now he has a part to play.
Yeah.
Where he can bring truth to it.
Yeah.
And say, I'm so sorry that you were hurt there. This is why this took place. And we don't usually get the answers as to why on this side of heaven, but we will one day. And it's as if we went through a drive-through and you didn't ask me what I wanted to eat, but you got yourself something to eat and I got offended by it. I can jump out of the car and just say, Daniel's a jerk and doesn't care what I want to eat. Or I say, hey, dude, I actually really wanted something. You're like, oh, well, I actually know that you have this entire buffet that we're going to that's already set up. Wow. And I have to leave early, so I had to get my food. But I wouldn't have known that had I just stayed quiet, and like, I would have gotten there eventually, right?
Yeah.
But my offense is wrong.
Yeah.
We're not giving God the space, or we're not giving each other the space to feel the truth and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I actually wasn't even trying to hurt you there.
Yeah.
And then here's everything that was going on in my head.
Yeah.
And now I'm aware, wow, you're actually dealing with a lot more things that are stronger than just the fact that I wanted food.
That's good.
We don't know each other's stories. We don't know what's like, we try to read each other's minds, I think, a little too much in life.
Yeah.
Instead of just being honest and being like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm feeling now. And then giving you the space to give the truth.
You just dropped a huge truth bomb in the fact of like practical things you can do. So for the Shard Nation, like what Sam just said, you can rewind the podcast and listen to it again, because when it gets to that point where you say ABC, I'm upset with ABC with you because you did this, this, and this. And powerful communication that Danny Silk has taught us is what, when you do this, I feel this way, not you make me feel angry, because nobody can make you do anything. I feel angry when this is happening. You go to God with ABC, but then the important thing that Sam just brought up is then have some quiet time. Some people's prayer life is built this way: 10 minutes of, I need the beep sound, beeping at God. And then what happens? You walk away, you go to work, you go to your job, you go to your kid's school function, you do all these things. But, oh man, I feel great because I had a 10-minute B session with God and yelling at him and saying all these things that you did. Yep. What happened to the relationship part of it, of like letting God say, this is what I want to do? And I think so many times in the context of hurt and offense, God, they did this, they did this, they did this, instead of letting him have another just as long, if not longer, time of saying, yeah, but have you considered that he's also my son? And I'm doing this in him, and I'm working this out of you. And I actually am preparing you for the next season to go into, and it would actually kill you if I brought you into it now. So I'm having you go through this to prepare you to walk into that.
Yeah.
But we get so offended with God's silence. And we talked about that yesterday. When God is not being silent, he's like, well, you didn't give me time to talk, Daniel. You just yelled at me for 10 minutes instead of waiting for me to actually reciprocate and talk to you.
Yeah, I did. Tim used to say in one of his sermons that I was highly affected by, he called it the teabag test. God will give you the teabag test.
What's this?
And that is where he will put you in a pot that's boiling hot.
Ooh.
To see if you got it or not.
Yikes. That's a good one, man.
And these situations come into our lives.
Yeah.
So that we can see
what's inside.
Oh, that's not love.
Ooh, that one hit, man.
That's hate. That's hurt. That's seeping out of me. That's worry. Kindness. That's not love. That's anxiety. That's
anxiety.
Worry. That's stress.
Ooh, what really that's not is trust. Coming out? The pressure.
Wow. That's good, man. Hashtag Tim. Hashtag we love you.
Yes. Changed my life.
Dude, that's good. I haven't heard that. I'm processing. This is Daniel processing.
We can process. We have time to process.
I haven't heard that one. So what you're saying to me, Sam, essentially is God allows us to be in hot, boiling places so it reveals what's inside of our heart.
Or brings hot, boiling people around us.
Whoa, agitators. Some 8s. Enneagram hashtag.
Or some high Ds.
Some high Ds.
You talk about disc.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, Dad. So you're saying that God will bring high Ds inside your life to expose what's inside that tea bag.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
He has done that numerous times for me.
Man, I'm chewing on this one. This is good. Because I wasn't going the other route. I was going the route of how many times has God brought boiling hot situations to expose anxiety inside my heart that he's working out.
Yep. You know, when you're making frog legs.
What the heck?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I gotta see
I need more words.
Okay. You get your pot of boiling water.
Can you bring the mic closer? Sorry, just a little bit.
If you put these legs in the pot first,
yeah,
and begin to slowly bring the boil up, the legs will stay in there. If you boil the water and then drop the legs in, they jump out.
Really?
Yep.
That's creepy. I didn't know this. All right. So moral of the story?
Moral of the story is God will...
Don't eat frog legs.
Moral of the story is try to put a lid on it so they stay in there. No, that was good. That was good about the... he will put you in the boiling water.
Yeah.
See what comes out.
Yeah.
Because... I mean, there's a life lesson in that you're only going to see, it's how gold is made by the pressure.
Yeah.
It's how diamonds are made by the pressure. And that's how we are groomed and how we are shaped and formed into his image by the trials, the tribulations.
Does that mean God is not a loving God, though? Why is he putting me in boiling water?
Because he wants the very best. And he has to do that. And you can look at it to kind of sort of as discipline. I've got to do this. In order to create or to make the best that you can be, to become the best that you can be.
Which is his son.
Which is my son. And, trial by fire, it's going to burn out the impurities. And when that pressure is there, you're going to see when it's done correctly, you're going to see the true diamond. You're going to see the gold that comes out. Got to get all that dross out of the way. I think of when I'm boiling lead to make lead bullets, when I'm reloading, there's really a lesson. I'm watching that and I'm skimming that dross off the top. But all of a sudden, and I take it and I clean it out. And then I see real shiny, pure lead and I scoop that up and pour it in there. And it makes a beautiful bullet. And if I was to leave the dross in the impurities there, it's going to be an imperfect bullet, and it won't fly straight. It won't hit the mark. And God wants us.
That's good.
He he intentionally does that in order that we might hit the mark. You don't want to miss the mark.
It's a purification process.
Purification for sure.
That's what.
And we don't like it.
And of course not, because it hurts to be purified.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the same thing.
You have to dig things out of you.
It's like a wound that has festered.
Yeah.
Or become infected.
Yeah.
And you try to tell a kid that, they have a wreck on their bicycle or got a cut on their leg. And there's gravel in it, there's dirt in it.
Mm-hmm. So good.
And you know that because I've seen wounds like that before. A friend of mine had a wreck on his bicycle, and there was still gravel underneath the skin that he didn't get completely out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had to go back, which makes it worse. Mm-hmm. And you have that hurt all over again instead of at the initial time applying the hurt at that time because you've got to clean it out. And it's going to be the best thing for you in the long run. And we don't see it that way. No, I just wanted to stop. Don't touch it. Leave me alone. And God said, no, I'm trying to open that wound up in your heart to clean it out, and you're kicking against it.
Yeah. So, in a way, when we pick up an offense and we become bitter, we're prolonging the purification process.
Yep.
And that pain will still be necessary. Still need to go through that pain to get that gravel out. Either now or later.
Pay me now, pay me later.
That's the context of your story. Sam and I were talking about this yesterday. We're talking like around 18 to 20 years of hurt and things that have happened. And a little bit of that dross got in the mix, and God has been purifying you and taking you through this process, because if you were to shoot that bullet, it actually not only becomes ineffective, but it could actually be dangerous in a way. You're not only ineffective for what God has purposed for you, but now you become a danger to other people around you.
Yeah.
And God is like, it's not that I want to do this because I want you to be my son, even though that is part of it. And all of it, really. So that is all of it. But he's like, I'm not going to hurt other people around me because of things that I've got to get out of that heart. And so now what happened last week is I'm scooping that stuff out.
Yep.
And sometimes, because I'm just stuck on this analogy now. We're such a microwave generation, and culture of God. Why don't you just snap your fingers and
I want it now?
Just take the impurities out now, just immediately.
Yeah.
And there are wounds that you have to reopen to correctly heal again. And sometimes there's wounds that you get administrated anesthetic and you don't feel it as much because you're submitted to the process and you're not fighting it. And I think that there's seasons and there's hurts that people go through, and then people can go through the same thing and it not hurt as bad. And that's the dynamic that I'm trying to pick up on, is like, what's the difference there? Is it the submission? Is it the thing? Or is there purpose in the pain? Like we have said before, where there is reasons that God has that you cannot know and will not know until the time has come that is showcased in front of you.
Yeah.
This is why you had to go through that. And this is why you had to feel it the way that you felt it. If we put into our minds that this is a purification process, all of life is a purification process.
Yeah.
That gives me the grace and the ability to say and look at situations through a true lens and find clarity in it, and not say like, oh, they just wronged me. Oh, they just did this. Like, God, what are you trying to pull out of me? what is the thing that's needing this situation?
Yeah.
Like, why am I in such a standstill in my life, in my season? Like, what is the thing that I'm fighting you, that I'm rocking the surgery table, trying to not let you touch?
That's good.
And now it's like, there's that curiosity.
Yeah.
If I get curious about my situation, I cannot get offended by it.
Yeah.
And it's just a purification process.
I think there's severity to whatever situation you're in, and whatever, let's just take it. It is what it is. Dirt is dirt, like you said before. So if it's offense, if it's fear, if it's whatever it is, sin is sin. And so God, that's the impure thing in your heart, is he's getting out that stuff that is going to make you less effective or ineffective. And I think it's the severity of that, of how quickly God will move in situations, how he moves. People have said truth and grace. Truth is what needs to happen, of like setting a bone. Grace is like the anesthetic to do that. You can't have truth without grace, because if you set a bone, you're going to scream and jump off the table. If you just give them anesthetic, they never set the bone, so it doesn't do any good. Wow. You have to have truth and grace. And if you think about the severity of the issue, the hurt, the sin, whatever it is inside your life, I've literally seen with my own eyes in Tyler, there's a guy that went into AFib. He was going to, his heart is essentially doing this and quivering, about to go out of control. And we're either going to code him in the next 5 minutes or he's going to live. And so I remember the doctor coming in, the whole team of people, they call a rapid response. We're looking at him from me to you. And we're all ready to jump in, getting my gloves on. We can't get a certain drug that we need. The doctor looks at him. We pull in the crash cart. He puts the pads on his chest and he's looking out and he's like, we don't have the anesthetic. We can't do this stuff right now of trying to make this feel good. It's going to hurt. I'm so sorry, Mr. Jones, whatever his name was. I'm so sorry. This is going to hurt. And then he looks at us and he says, clear. And we all step back, charge, and shock him right there as he's looking at us. And when you have that much electricity flowing through your body, it is not pleasant. But it was God in that scenario of saying, we'll say God, the great physician, knows this has to happen right now. Yeah. You're walking through a season right now that this thing has to come out of you because it's going to kill you. Yeah. And so I'm sorry, buddy, but we need to walk through this right now. Clear out of the way situations, clear out of the way angels, clear out of the way whatever stuff, distractions and idols and all the stuff inside of your life. I'm about to shock you with my truth. I'm about to shock you with the stuff that needs to come inside you. Everybody clear. Shock, and he brings in. But then after that, we take care of him, we mend him, we do all this stuff. And God is so faithful to do that as our great physician. But I think so many people are scared of, well, is it going to hurt? Like, is this going to happen? We have such a good and faithful God. I asked Dad at the campfire, this was probably 3-4 years ago now. And it was like one of those questions like, Dad, if you died this year, like, what is one thing you want to leave with us? And one thing he said is, he said, God is faithful, period. God is faithful in whatever situation that you're walking through, period. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it may hurt. It may do this, but God's going to be with you every step of the way.
Did I say that?
You did.
That's pretty good.
It's a good day.
That'll preach. And I'll reiterate, God is faithful.
Yeah.
We don't always, we may not always like the way he does things. Daniel did not always like the way I did things when I was raising him, but I did it because I loved him. Yeah. And I'm proud of him. I love him now more than life itself. And so sometimes God has to do that. It's a shame that God has to do that at times, to do the hard things, to say back off, clear. Yeah. It's about to hit the fan right here, but I'm going to save your life as a result of it. Yep. And that's good. That's a good thing. Yeah.
That was incredible, honestly, what you just said. That is because it's interesting when you say like the clear part, because my brain also goes like, he clears out comfort.
Ooh.
You know?
He clears out.
Gosh, that was...
He clears out the comfort. He clears out. One. But it's the severity of it. Like you're right. It's like, this isn't going to be comfortable for you. But it's necessary.
It's necessary.
To save your life.
That's good.
There's other people. God, I didn't even take it that way. Sam, that was so spot on. There was community there. Me, along with every other part of the ancillary team, doctor team, everybody shows up when God calls a rapid response to the room. Everybody shows up to save that life. But then there are times that God is saying, listen, they're here to take care of you and do all the things I need to as soon as I'm done with the work inside of you. And yeah, he brings that through them, but God is saying clear, because I'm about to insert the hard things that need to happen in order to save your life. But as soon as it happens, don't think that God is a cruel God, because as soon as it happened, I was within 1 second and I jumped in, did this, protected the airway. Nurses come in. We finally got the drugs that needed to help them. So we do all those things. Community comes in, but there are times that God has to do those hard things inside of your heart. Otherwise, it's going to kill you. Yeah. And I did not see, when you said that, I didn't even see comfort, which I take it when you said that, money, security, all these things I can hold on to to become beyond comfort. I take it as my foundation. And God is like, nope,
clear.
I'm your foundation. Clear.
Because, and this might speak to people who have gone through seasons of what feels like an isolation.
Yeah.
Where you had a community, you had friend groups, and now like all of a sudden they're really busy and you feel isolated.
Yeah.
It could be a clear moment, because if they don't clear out and they get shocked, now you have two people that are affected and hurt.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think we're going to call this episode Clear.
Clear.
I think
That'll
it's fitting.
preach.
I think that's I think that's what this episode's going to be called, because.
And an encouragement to those people. Like, I just want to tell you, going back to that scenario, it seems so long, but it's really so quick. I was in that room less than 5 minutes before the decision was made, and God intervened. The doctor, who was an excellent pulmonologist, before he intervened and did the things he needed to do. And you know how fast it was? That fast. God's not interested in, he loves you. The enemy's coming in and lying to you. Let's just call it what it is. Satan is the accuser of the brethren. He hates God with every bit of his being. He wants to do everything he can to still kill and destroy. He's the one who has convinced you that it's going to be a long, drawn out thing and it's going to hurt and all this other stuff. Well, yeah, God's coming in and he's doing it that fast because he loves you. And you know what happens is, while he does that to you, he's there with you the entire time. I've never left you, and I'm never going to forsake you.
And your comfort may become secondary in order for the necessary thing to take place. Knowing full well that the comfort will come eventually.
Yeah. Why is that? Because his name is
the Comforter.
The Comforter. Whoa.
This is why I love Mosaic. This is why I love, and I will, and as long as I'm alive, sit down and hit record and have conversations like this.
Yeah.
So when does the second session start?
The second session? Yeah. No, we just play it by ear. So, hey man, anytime you want to come and sit down and have a conversation, like, I think Shard Nation has absolutely fallen in love with you.
Shard Nation.
And it's, what do we call them now?
Yeah.
Like, it's our Mosers and our Shards all together. Shard Nation.
I'm a pard.
You're a pard?
Yeah. I'm a
part-time
Shard. I'm a partner.
Okay.
I'm a partner.
I was going with part-time Shard.
Part-time
That's
Shard.
really good.
I'm a partner.
I love it. And
lost your
so
mind,
thank thank you for being willing to sit down and have this kind of conversation and just
you're very welcome.
Seeing what happens. And now you get to see behind the curtain a little bit as to how this stuff happens.
Yeah. Right.
And
So he was like, Daniel, what is even a podcast? do you just like, I can talk about guns and stuff. I'm like, Dad, it's more than that. He's like, I don't know.
I am a gun lover.
yes.
But you have so much more inside your heart than just talking about guns or something. Like today's podcast was so life-giving and rich. And we didn't even get to, like, we talked about stuff a couple of days ago or yesterday.
Does God ever not speak?
Right. And that's a whole nother podcast.
That's going to be the second episode.
Touched. And you just like totally blessed our community by just like speaking out of your heart. So thank you for being open and doing that.
Absolutely.
Anytime.
And ironically, I don't know if you know this or not, but I just yesterday started to take steps towards a pursuit of getting my bachelor's in psychology.
Cool.
And my goal is to become a licensed therapist.
Wow.
And it's something that I never went to college. I always said I don't want to go to college because I don't know what I want to be yet.
Just think you can be just like me.
Oh gosh!
Now I'm Sam. Now you've inspired me.
You gotta start talking more country like him now and really pick up gun loving.
No, it was a wonderful conversation that I had with your son because I was voicing to him that I feel like I'm too old and I've missed the boat on college and I've missed the boat. And if I could go back, I'd tell my 20-year-old self, go get this degree and do it in psychology, because being in therapy has completely changed my life and given me tools that I've needed and that I didn't know. So go to therapy, guys, because it will change your life. And there's no stigma on it. You are a whole person, and we go to the doctor for our broken arms, broken legs. It doesn't mean that you are less than because you've broken your arm. You also don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so when there's a pain in your body and you don't understand what's going on, you go get it checked out.
Yeah.
Same thing with our minds.
Yep.
Same thing with our brains.
Yeah.
So please go to therapy. It's a great thing. And the healthiest people in the world are in therapy. Yeah. And so
if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That's not grammatically correct.
Oh my gosh. But you're not an English major.
But it's systematically correct.
Yeah.
I think
what are you going to do differently?
Funny that you've given your background in psychology and counseling and everything. We literally just dealt with this a couple of days ago when we were having this road trip. And he said, he was like, you're almost already disqualifying yourself saying you can't do this. And I was like, it's your passion though. So what's neat about our community here is they're able to see Sam before going into these classes, taking this journey, because over the next 2 to 4 to 6 years, as we're doing this podcast, because this is going to continue to blossom.
1,000%.
1,000%.
And that's what woke me up to it. Like, was everything that I had pursued as my desire, my dream, when I wanted to do videos or I wanted to make movies or I wanted to do shows, I wanted to tell stories that would help people.
Yeah.
Everything that I stepped into with podcasting, I always had the mindset of, I'm going into this as if it's a therapy session and I'm asking the questions that I want to know and like that I want to wrestle with. And so it's all been therapeutic in that sense. And I just it never clicked for me that I could still pursue this and achieve this.
Yes.
I didn't like school. I had a really mean Bible teacher one time. No, I just didn't like school. And
I hated school too.
And it's just like, there's a lot of, even as I sit here today, like there's a lot of anxiety that comes up when I think about like starting college and starting to do classes again. But I know that at the end of the day, if I had a license to be a therapist and that was what I was doing with my life, I would feel so fulfilled. And I can't do like corporate America or like jobs where it's like, I got to screw someone over just for $1. Like, I can't do it, but I want honest work that helps someone. And that's where I feel like this is where I'm supposed to go. And this is what God has been kind of nudging me towards. And I had to go through a lot of hot seasons to get to this place.
It's sad that we think that we have to, and there's nothing wrong with receiving the education. But the key thing is keeping your focus as it already is. Keep your focus on the Lord, because I mean, the thing, who cares about Freud and Skinner and Pavlov and all I mean, there are concepts there that you can, you can kind of study that and understand it. But the key is taking the things that God has taught you into the experiences.
Yeah.
Experiences are so critical to be able to see, hey, I'm alive. I went through this, and here I am today.
It's gonna be good
because I took these steps right here. Yeah, the education part, reading the book, taking the courses, and doing all of that is the discipline. Yeah. You've got to take those steps, and you got to be disciplined in that. But that's not what you're after. That sheepskin. It's pretty neat, but. Yeah. The one you want is this one right here, where he's worked it in your heart over all these years. Yeah. So the man with a testimony is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. That's a saying, Bill Johnsonism. That's good. The things that you've been through, you're never at the mercy of somebody who studied Freud or something and comes up with something that he can say, well, this is the way it should be. Well, has he been through the same seasons you've been through? And if he hasn't, he needs to hush, because the things that you're going to bring out and talk to that one person who's on the brink of suicide or on the brink of divorce or whatever it is, and you say, hey, bud, I've been in your place. Been there, done that.
Yep.
And this is how I overcame.
That's so good.
By the blood of the Lamb and the word of my testimony.
Word of your testimony, bro. I'm excited for you. I'm very, very excited. I'm very scared. I'm very nervous, but I know that's, like I said, at the end of the day, if I do this, knowing that that's not all I'll ever do, but if it was all I ever did, I would be extremely satisfied. Yeah. And say, like, God, you gave me the opportunity to help people in the best way that I know how, which is talking and having conversations. And I've always loved conversations.
And always keep in the back of the mind that you are still helping people before you even get to the end of all that.
Yeah. That's really good. That's good. That's and really the best part of like all of it is there's a possibility he may be a Cardinal. I'm super excited.
You need to be a Houston Cougar.
No, all about Cardinals. I'm dual school because I'm Apache too. So we have the tomahawk and this. So when I go to people, I go like this. They're like, I can't say what I said before on the podcast, but yeah, it came across a certain way. He would look so cool as a Cardinal.
And I might mention too that donations to buy better furniture.
Yeah, please donate to our podcast so that Mr. Hennessee can be.
I even went to the chiropractor this morning and it's now starting to hurt again.
Come back next time in massage chairs. Hey, welcome back to Mosaic Live. Instead of going like this. I don't know what kind of massage chair makes you go like that. Just like yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us and being a part and being willing to even just participate in the listening of these conversations and letting God speak to you, hopefully through whatever we end up talking about. That is our vision. That's our heart here on Mosaic, to rotate the broken pieces, to try to find the art, to try to find the beauty. And until the next episode.